Good morning. We're going to start this morning with a song called Our Thoughts, Our Prayers. And this is an old Unity song. It was written in like 1980-ish. So once you get the hang of it, we'll just sing it through a few times. Our thoughts are prayers, and we are always praying. Our thoughts are prayers. Be careful what you're saying. Seek a higher consciousness, a state of peacefulness, and know that God is always there. And every thought becomes a prayer. Our thoughts are prayers, and we are always praying. Our thoughts are prayers. Take charge of what you're saying. Seek a higher consciousness, a state of peacefulness, and know that God is always there. And every thought becomes a prayer. Our thoughts are prayers, and we are always praying. Our thoughts are prayers. Be careful what you're saying. Seek a higher consciousness, a state of peacefulness, and know that God is always there. And every thought becomes a prayer. Our thoughts are prayers, and we are always praying. Our thoughts are prayers. Take charge of what you're saying. Seek a higher consciousness, a state of peacefulness, and know that God is always there. And every thought becomes a prayer. Our thoughts are prayers, and we are always praying. Our thoughts are prayers. Be careful what you're saying. Seek a higher consciousness, a state of peacefulness, and know that God is always there. And every thought becomes a prayer. One last time. Our thoughts are prayers, and we are always praying. Our thoughts are prayers. Take charge of what you're saying. Seek a higher consciousness, a state of peacefulness, and know that God is always there. And every thought becomes a prayer.
everyone. I don't know why I feel like saying good evening, because it's not evening. Good evening. Something about the air in the room feels like evening. Well, if you didn't know, I'm stepping in for Jack this morning, who is on a camping trip with Norma. They do deserve a break every once in a while. So to start off, I wanted to remind us all of what our fifth unity principle is. If you're not aware what that is that knowledge of these principles or these truths or these teachings is not enough. We must live them. We must actually put them into practice. And the teachings of unity can get very heady and oftentimes can attract intellectual people who really like the headiness of it, to use such a word. Like to stimulate the mind in their practice. But sometimes we fall short of actually taking the things that we've learned mentally that have stimulated the consciousness of our mind and actually put them into physical and spiritual practice. And so many times, in many ways, we're coming up very short of the expectation of our founders, Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, of seeing us grow spiritually. Because it's just not enough to listen to and talk about these principles, because they really are basically useless without application, without daily application, because that's where the transformation occurs in our lives, is through the daily application, not through the listening and the learning. So I had a gymnastics coach here in town. Actually, the Boulder Rec Center is where North Boulder Rec Center is where I took gymnastics as a kid through grade school and junior high. And everyone would always say, practice makes perfect, practice makes perfect. And my gymnastics coach would remind us, he said, that's actually wrong. He said, practice can actually make you worse. He said, it's perfect practice that makes you perfect. Because he would recognize that we would show up to practice tired, not eating the proper foods, we weren't focused, we were actually injuring ourselves while trying to do the tricks that we were learning because we were not focused. And then when we were not actually the one on the tumbling floor, we'd be off on the side, messing with each other and that sort of thing. And so he kept emphasizing, you have to be as focused right now during practice as you plan to be in the competition when you have to perform. Because if you are not as focused right now in your practice as you plan to be when you perform, you will not be focused when you perform. And you'll be a train wreck and likely you'll hurt yourself. In gymnastics, focus is the difference between getting the trick done and injuring yourself. And I actually had a friend, this comes to mind, he was a gymnast, he was just a grade below me. We also took gymnastics together there. But he actually continued on. I stopped when I went to high school. He continued on and actually was a acrobatic diver for the show Le Rev in Las Vegas for many, many years. And that show just officially closed forever yesterday. They announced they will not be reopening that show. So all the acrobats that are part of that show are on Facebook crying and just distraught because of COVID. They won't be able to open that show again. He left the show last year, so he's already on to another job. But I used to talk to him. He did 4,200 some odd shows, performances of that show at the Wynn Hotel twice a night. And I used to talk to him and say, every trick he did could have probably killed him if he'd not done it right. Everything was just the most amazing thing to watch. He's dangling over the audience, he's dangling over pipes and things. And I said, the amount of focus required every single night of your life, twice a night, you have to show up and be absolutely focused, because not only is your body dependent on you being focused, but the acrobats around you are all completely dependent on you hitting your mark when you say you're going to hit your mark, so you don't land on them or they land on you. And he was focused, and he was actually a fellow child who was raised in unity like myself and did have that focus. But it was always amazing to me that he could show up each night, 2 performances a night, with that amount of focus, not to mention with the amount of energy and body work that went into performing that. So it's not just practice that makes perfect, because many of us know that we've shown up to practice something and not given it our best. And that's really the difference between what creates a master and what creates someone who just kind of fledges along. I remember hearing someone say, it might have been on a podcast or something, they said, growing up, I always wanted to be a boxer. I wanted to be one of the great boxers, ring boxer, fighting boxer. And they said until college, when I went to a boxing gym and I was surrounded by people that really wanted to be a boxer, wanted to be the best boxer. And you realize these people weren't just showing up for a couple hours, they were living this. Their diet, their mind, every moment of their day was dedicated to boxing. And that person said, then I realized I do not want to step in the ring with one of these guys, because that'll be the end of me. And it's really that difference between I want this versus I'm going to completely lose myself in this every time I do it, with that amount of focus and concentration. So I'm going to read the definition of concentration from our Unity book, The Revealing Word, written by our co-founder Charles Fillmore, who defines some words for us. Concentration, a thought center, a nucleus of faith or spiritual confidence, the centering of the attention on a particular idea. Concentration forms a mental lodestone in the mind to which thought substances rushes like iron filings to a magnet, bringing the forces, whether mental or physical, to a common purpose. I like that visual of iron filings being attracted to a magnet. If you imagine being actually pinpointedly laser focused on something, everything else in your life begins to align in that direction, like those filings being attracted towards a magnet. It doesn't matter where they are on the table, they're all going to get into alignment with that magnet. And that's what pinpointed laser focus in your life does, especially during spiritual practice and meditation. And most of meditation is simply trying to be that intunely focused on the divine, and that is all. Letting everything else melt away in existence, and in meditation just simply being focused on the divine. Some people think the purpose of meditation is to just clear the mind and become empty. A lot of spiritual teachers say that is actually not the route you're trying to go, because the empty mind is the play of the consciousness. But to actually create so much focus, you're using everything you have in your existence to be focused on nothing but the divine, to drag everything of your senses and your thoughts into alignment with the divine. So speaking of focus, the Guru Paramahansa Yogananda has a two-book series. This is volume 1, where he goes through and actually interprets the passages of the Bible and compares them to the Sanskrit and Yogic teachings of the East to show that they're actually in direct correlation, that the teachings of Christ were identical to the teachings of Krishna and other great Eastern masters. So these are quite powerful volumes. But here he says, the whims of fickleness and the mental excitement of love of the new are real deterrents on the spiritual path. Sampling one church after another, one teacher after another, collecting an incompatible hash of ideas is a sure formula for developing theoretical indigestion. The way to wisdom lies in assimilating truths into one's own personal realization, not in the amassing of concepts left untried and unproven. The method of finding God is different from the methods of gathering knowledge and storing it in the brain employed by universities to educate specialists in any field. Even so, a medical student, for example, will never learn his specialty if he roams willy-nilly from subject to subject, switching from one medical institution to another and listening to a few lectures at each, but not going through intensive training and the necessary courses in an effectively integrated program to earn a degree. The serious spiritual aspirant also needs to commit him or herself to the time and lessons necessary for self-realization, to the practice of those proven methods that have produced God-knowing saints. That is what I like to call the modern-day spiritual buffet. There was a time when people stepped onto a path, and that was the path they practiced for their entire life. They were part of a religion, and that was the religion they were a part of for their entire life. Whether you agree with religion or faith or specific paths, it gave them that laser focus. They grew up in a community where everyone was doing the same practice. They became adults and surrounded themselves with friends where everyone was doing the same practice. They could share their struggles with their spiritual practice or their religion because everyone around them was doing it as well and could help them through those struggles. And when they had benefits in their spiritual path and they grew, they could share those with the group around them, and people would understand how they got there. And it would inspire them to become even more focused on their particular spiritual path. And every single religion on this planet has produced God-realized saints. So if you have one in your mind that you're trying to vilify as, oh, well, that's not getting anybody any there, every single religion on this planet has produced God-realized saints. So we can say, oh, well, that one doesn't have the right path. They don't know what they're doing. And we've had people that levitate in almost every religion on this planet because they've become so spiritually evolved. Historical records indicate that they've been levitating or they vanish at will. So we have no room to judge one path as greater than the other. Because anyone who became so laser focused on the divine in whatever path they were on found the divine. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, those who follow this path, resolving deep within themselves to seek me alone, attain singleness of purpose. For those who lack resolution, the decisions of life are many-branched and endless. We often bemoan our modern-day society with how busy we are, how many decisions there are to make, and how difficult it is to get along in this day and age. But that's only because we are so distracted. If we actually had a single purpose in our lives, every decision would be so easy, because it would simply be a choice between, does this align with my purpose or does this not? In the abundance class I teach, which I wrapped up a couple weeks ago, that is one thing we work on throughout the class, is actually coming up with what is your priority in life. For some people, it's their children. If your priority is your children, then that makes all your other decisions that much easier. Should I get this larger house? Well, will it give me more time with my children? No, I'll have to work more to afford to pay it, which means I'll be away from my children more. Then no, you don't get the larger house. Decisions become so much easier when we are laser focused. For those of us who are on the path to divine, should I take this job? Will it give me more time to meditate and more concentration on the divine? No, then don't take this job. These decisions become very easy at that point in time. But focus and concentration is something quickly vanishing from our planet. Because few of us have the willpower to turn off the media. And willpower is the second thing that's probably vanishing from this planet. Do you actually have the willpower to sit down and watch a show that doesn't make you feel like crap? Doesn't make you sit there and cry and bemoan all the things that are happening to the characters. Doesn't make you feel horrible because the news channel is telling you everything that's wrong. Doesn't show you murder and violence and gore and bloodshed because it tintillated the ego for a second, but then later on you just felt like garbage. Do you have the willpower to remove garbage from your life? Probably not. Most of us allow the garbage to continue. Most of us continue to hang out with that friend that is so negative. It's funny in the moment, but we leave feeling horrible. Or being around the people that just can't live without drama and therefore create drama everywhere they go. Drama amongst us, drama amongst people we know. There's drama between them and the government. There's drama between them and their car and their house. It's funny, but in the end, that drama starts to filter into our lives and infect us. Do we have the willpower to step away from those situations? It seems that most of us don't. Probably many of us in this room do. But most of us as a collective are letting willpower fade away, to fizzle out, like an atrophied muscle in a leg that is no longer being used. Willpower has to be flexed many, many times a day in order to develop that muscle and use it, which means I'm not going to watch the latest gory film or the latest movie that subversely promotes racism. I was just watched that movie with Tom Hanks recently where he's the captain of a freighter ship and they get hijacked by Somalians, wasn't it? And I enjoyed the movie, and then I was sitting there afterwards going, where's the movie about all the wonderful things in Somalia? The beautiful traditions and the people there. No, in the United States, we get the villain Somalian who's attacking the poor white captain and his ship because they have no moral code, and so we need Navy SEALs to come in and kill them. But where's the backstory to tell us how they got there? And there was only one line in that movie that even hinted at it, where one of the Somalians said, we have to do this because your companies have come in and removed all the fish from our waters, and we have no way to survive now. But where is that story? No, we're still vilifying the black people in our movies in this subversive way to say, well, no, this is an event that actually happened. Yeah, it actually happened. But there were also trillions of other events that happened that were beautiful in Somalia, and we're not talking about that. If that was the country, I can't remember if that was the country, but I believe it was. So there's a lot of good things happening right now, especially with the book that came out with White Fragility, where all of us are being asked to question our own biases that we've just accepted as okay. And now we're forced to realize it's not okay. And it's not enough to be not a racist. You have to become an anti-racist, which is another great book that the men's group are working on right now. So this next passage from the Bhagavad Gita is going to mention Sankhya, which is the intellectual or analytical spiritual study, which I sort of referred to before, the tantalizing the mind with the spiritual process. And then it talks about yoga and compares the two, where yoga is the application and the practice of yoga, becoming one with God. And this is Krishna speaking to Arjuna. You have heard the intellectual explanation of Sankhya, Arjuna. Now listen to the principles of yoga. By practicing these, you can break through the bonds of karma. On this path, effort never goes to waste, and there is no failure. Even a little effort towards spiritual awareness will protect you from the greatest fear. I want to close out with that because I didn't want you to think that whatever spiritual effort you're putting forth right now is not enough, because any spiritual effort is something, and it's helping you along. But if we can get into that place of focused effort, it's a whole other ball game. Focused effort, and dedication to a practice that we not just see as something we do when we have time, but it becomes the priority in our lives. When a friend say, hey, can you go out tonight at 7? You say, actually, I have a practice I do at 7. I can meet you at 8. It becomes that important in your life. When someone says, we're going on a road trip, we're going to leave at 8, you say, I've got to leave at 9 because my practice takes me from 6:30 to 8, or however long your practice is. You go on vacation, you still find a place somewhere in the hotel to actually meditate, which I often find is the gym because no one goes to the gym before about 6 a.m., 7 a.m. And if the gym's not available, the bathroom works wonderful. A little towel on the toilet, a little towel under your feet on the floor, keep them warm off the tile. How many toilets I've meditated on, I have no idea, but a lot of them. You start to learn the perfect height of the perfect toilet. But you make it that important in your life. But do something. Start the practice. So we're going to do that now. I'm going to bring you into meditation with the sound of the bowl. It'll probably go for about 3 or 4 minutes. And then we're going to go into silence for about 10 minutes. And then I'll bring you out of the meditation with the sound of the bowl again. So I invite you, if you have not done so yet, to get yourself into a meditative posture. We do have some pillows down here under the front pews if you want to grab a pillow for any reason to support your back, or you're actually welcome to sit on the floor on these pillows if you'd rather do that. I do recommend you try to get your back straight because these pews actually lean you back probably 10 degrees or so and take you off center. But if you can find that place where your spine is straight and you can actually balance without effort, you're going to find it's a lot easier to allow that energy to flow from the tip of your tailbone to the top of your head. So really trying to find that alignment, whatever position we're in, whether we sit in lotus, half lotus, or in a chair like I do now. We want to find that alignment from the tip of the tailbone to the top of the head. Shoulders slightly back, not by force, but by position. So wherever you have to position your hands to allow those shoulders to open up, to make the breathing easier. But like I said, without efforts, you're not pulling the shoulders back. And so we begin.
living on one planet, joining in one family. We all are one. Join me when you feel ready. One people, living on one planet, joining in one family. We all are one. One people, living on one planet, joining in one family. We all are one. One people, living in one planet, joining in one family. We all are one. One people, living on one planet, joining in one family. We all are one. One people, living on one planet, joining in one family. We all are one. One people, living on one planet, joining in one family. We all are one. We all are one. We all are one.
And as we go forth now from this meditation and this time of silence and communion together, we hold on to this tingling vibration we feel pulsating through the body right now from the music and the bowl and the silence. We hold on to it as our guiding light, leading us through this day and the rest of this week, giving us focus, giving us a moment to remember that this is actually why we are here. Not the distractions, not the chaos, not the gossip, but the one pointedness towards the divine are why we are here. And so it is. And namaste. So we are going to take an offering for Unity now. In Unity, we recognize that giving a financial gift is a part of our spiritual practice, along with giving of our time and our talents. We won't be passing any basket or bowl today. We will have collection baskets in the back. If you have a physical offering to give, we also have the dip jars for credit cards in the lobby. If you're joining us online, I invite you to join us in this giving process. We have many ways to give that you'll see up on the slide next to me digitally. So I invite you to take your offering into your hand, whether it be physical or spiritual or digital. And we're going to bless it with this offering statement, if you'll say it with me. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive, because I give. And we know that is through giving that we receive. Amen. Well, thank you all for coming. I do hope that you can keep that focus throughout your week and hold on to this peace and try to pass it on to everyone you know. And have a wonderful day.